The people who will surpass you in the next 5 years are already working twice as hard as you. But you don't know their names. They're not in your network. They're not speaking at conferences. They're not building personal brands or collecting LinkedIn followers. They're building something far more valuable, actual competence. While you're worried about visibility, they're focused on capability. While you're managing perceptions, they're mastering skills. While you're networking at industry events, they're solving real problems in their basement. When they finally emerge, you won't even understand how they got so far ahead so fast. There's a man sitting in the back corner of every boardroom, every classroom, every workshop. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't raise his hand to show off what he knows. He listens. He observes. He takes notes while others argue about who's the smartest person in the room. And while everyone else is busy performing, he's busy learning. 6 months later, that same quiet man walks into the room as the new CEO, the top performer, the one who got the promotion everyone else thought they deserved. This is the power of being underestimated. This is your secret advantage. Most people have it backwards. They think they need to be the loudest voice in the room to get ahead. They believe success comes from showing everyone how brilliant they are from day one. They're wrong. The most successful people I've studied over 3 decades understand something that average performers never grasp. When people underestimate you, they give you the greatest gift possible. They stop watching you closely. They stop seeing you as competition. They stop trying to block your progress. Think about Jennifer, a software developer I met 5 years ago. When she joined her company, she was the quiet one in a team full of superstars. Her colleagues talked about their coding achievements, their side projects, their brilliant ideas. Jennifer just coded. While they were networking at happy hours, she was home studying new programming languages. While they were posting on social media about their latest projects, she was building applications that solved real problems. Her manager barely noticed her. Her colleagues forgot she existed. But Jennifer was accumulating skills at a rate that would have shocked them. She was learning database optimization while they debated which coffee shop had the best Wi-Fi for remote work. She was mastering cloud architecture while they argued about which framework was superior. She was building a portfolio of solutions while they built a portfolio of complaints. 18 months later, when the company needed someone to lead their digital transformation project, guess who had the exact skills they needed? Not the person with the biggest personality, not the one who always had something clever to say in meetings. Jennifer, the quiet one, the one they underestimated. This happens every single day in offices, schools, and businesses around the world. While the loud ones grab attention, the quiet ones grab results. While the obvious candidates politic for position, the underestimated ones position themselves through performance. Your brain is wired to work better when you're not performing for an audience. Neuroscientists have proven that. When you're trying to impress others, your prefrontal cortex gets overwhelmed, you make more mistakes, you take fewer risks, you play it safe because you're worried about looking foolish. But when you work in private, when nobody's judging your every move, your brain operates at peak efficiency. You experiment, you fail, you learn, you improve. The most dangerous competitor is not the one everyone's talking about. It's the one nobody sees coming. When Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, his coach didn't see him as a threat. When Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television news, her critics weren't worried about her future success. When Colonel Sanders was rejected by over 1,000 restaurants before someone agreed to use his chicken recipe, those restaurant owners didn't think they were turning away a future billionaire. Being underestimated gives you time. Time to make mistakes without everyone watching. Time to develop your skills without pressure. Time to figure out what works and what doesn't before the stakes get high. It's like having a practice round in golf before the tournament starts, except your competitors don't even know you're playing. The underestimated have another advantage: lower expectations. When people expect little from you, you can surprise them with ordinary effort. When someone expects you to fail, Succeeding at any level looks impressive, but when everyone expects you to be brilliant, you have to be extraordinary just to meet their expectations. Smart people use this psychology to their advantage. They let others assume they're not the strongest player in the game. They let people think someone else is the real competition, while their rivals are busy competing with each other, fighting for attention and credit. The underestimated person is competing with themselves. Getting better every day. This strategy worked for Sam Walton when he built Walmart. Retail giants like Sears and Kmart weren't worried about some guy opening discount stores in small Arkansas towns. They were busy fighting each other in big cities by the time they realized what was happening. Walton had built an unstoppable network of stores and supply chains. He used their underestimation as camouflage while he perfected his business model. Being underestimated doesn't mean being invisible. It means being strategic about when and how you reveal your capabilities. It means building your foundation when the pressure is low so you can perform when the pressure is high. It means developing your skills in practice so you can demonstrate them in games that matter. The people who underestimate you today will be the same people asking how you did it tomorrow. They'll want to know your secret. They'll wonder how you got so good so fast. The truth is, you didn't get good fast. You got good quietly. You got good while they weren't paying attention. You got good while they were busy telling everyone else how good they were. Your current position, whatever it is not your final destination. The people who can't see your potential today won't be able to ignore your results tomorrow. Let them underestimate you. Use their blindness as your advantage. While they're looking elsewhere, you're building something they can't see coming when you announce your goals to others. Something strange happens in your brain. The moment you tell someone about your plan to lose weight, start a business, or learn a new skill, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. It feels like you've already accomplished something. Scientists call this social reality. Your mind tricks itself into thinking that talking about the goal is the same as achieving it. This is why most New Year's resolutions fail by February. People spend more energy talking about what they're going to do than actually doing it. They get satisfaction from the conversation instead of the work. But when you keep your goals private, your brain has only one way to get that satisfaction: through actual results. Dr. Peter Gollwitzer at New York University studied this phenomenon for over a decade. His research shows that people who keep their intentions to themselves are significantly more likely to achieve them. When you tell others about your plans, you reduce your motivation to follow through. Your brain has already received the reward it was seeking: recognition and approval from others. Think about this in your own life. How many times have you told someone about a project you were going to start, felt good about their encouraging response, and then never actually started the project? How many times have you announced a new habit you were going to develop, received praise for your good intentions, and then failed to stick with it? Your brain got what it wanted from the announcement, so it lost interest in the actual work. Silent builders understand this psychology and use it to their advantage. They know that every bit of energy spent talking about their goals is energy not spent working toward them. They channel 100% of their motivation into action instead of dividing it between action and discussion. This creates what researchers call implementation focus. When you're not explaining your plans to others, you're forced to focus on the details of execution. Instead of thinking about how impressive your goal sounds, you think about the specific steps needed to achieve it. Instead of worrying about what others will think, you concentrate on what needs to be done next. Marcus, a chef I know, understood this principle perfectly. While his culinary school classmates posted photos of every dish they made and talked constantly about the restaurants they would open, Marcus spent his free time perfecting techniques in his apartment kitchen. He wasn't posting on social media. He wasn't networking at industry events. He was practicing knife skills until his fingers could move without thinking. He was testing flavor combinations until he could predict how ingredients would interact. His classmates thought he was antisocial. They assumed he wasn't serious about his career because he didn't participate in their constant discussions about the restaurant business. They were wrong. While they were talking about cooking, Marcus was cooking. While they were building their online presence, he was building his skill set. 2 years after graduation, Marcus was hired as sous chef at a prestigious restaurant. His former classmates were still working entry-level positions, still talking about their future restaurants, still posting pictures of other people's food. Marcus had used his silence to create compound improvement. Every quiet hour he spent practicing had multiplied his abilities. This is the compound effect in action, when you work consistently without announcing your progress. Small improvements stack on top of each other. Each day's private effort builds on the previous day's work. There's no pressure to perform before you're ready. There's no distraction from people offering opinions about your methods. There's just steady, focused improvement. Neurologists have discovered that the brain forms stronger neural pathways when learning happens without external pressure. When you practice a skill privately, your mind can focus entirely on the process instead of dividing attention between the task and your audience's reaction. This creates deeper learning and more permanent improvement. Professional athletes know this secret. They spend thousands of hours training in private for every hour they perform in public. The world sees them for a few hours during games, but their real development happens in empty gyms, early mornings, and late nights when nobody's watching. They understand that public performance is just the tip of the iceberg. The real work happens beneath the surface. The same principle applies to any skill or goal. The writer who becomes successful isn't the one posting daily updates about their word count. It's the one who disappears for months and emerges with a finished novel. The entrepreneur who builds a lasting business isn't the one constantly talking about their startup at networking events. It's the one who quietly solves customer problems until they have something worth talking about. Your silent hours are your most productive hours. They're when you can experiment without judgment, fail without embarrassment, and improve without pressure. They're when your brain can focus entirely on getting better instead of looking good. The science is clear. Silence amplifies progress. When you eliminate the distraction of external validation, you maximize the power of internal motivation. When you stop performing your goals, you start achieving them. The strongest buildings have foundations you never see. They're buried deep underground, invisible to everyone walking by, but they're what makes everything above ground possible. Your personal foundation works the same way. The character, skills, and habits you build when nobody's watching determine how high you can rise when everyone is. Most people try to build their reputation before they build their foundation. They want the recognition before they've earned the competence. They want the title before they've developed the skills. This approach always fails because there's nothing solid underneath to support their success. Real achievement happens in the quiet moments between public performances. It happens at 5 in the morning when you're studying while others are sleeping. It happens late at night when you're practicing your craft while others are watching television. It happens during lunch breaks when you're learning new skills while others are scrolling through their phones. Consider Robert, an accountant who wanted to transition into financial planning. Instead of announcing his career change to everyone at his office, he used his commute time to study for his certification. Instead of attending networking events to talk about his plans, he spent evenings learning portfolio management software. Instead of updating his LinkedIn profile to reflect his new interests, he spent weekends taking online courses in investment strategy for 8 months. Robert lived a double life. His colleagues saw him as the same reliable accountant he'd always been. But in his private hours, he was becoming something else entirely. He was building expertise that none of them could see. He was developing capabilities that would have surprised everyone who knew him. When Robert finally started his financial planning practice, people were shocked by his immediate competence. They wondered how he'd become so knowledgeable so quickly. The truth was, he hadn't become knowledgeable quickly, he'd become knowledgeable quietly. He'd used his invisible hours to build expertise that looked sudden but was actually months in the making. This is how true professionals develop. They understand that skill building is like muscle building. It happens during recovery, not during performance. A bodybuilder doesn't get stronger during the workout. They get stronger during the 23 hours between workouts when their muscles repair and grow. Similarly, you don't get better at your craft during meetings and presentations. You get better during the private hours when you practice. Study and refine your abilities. The foundation you build in private determines your performance in public. When you spend months perfecting your presentation skills in front of a mirror, you can speak confidently in front of a board of directors. When you spend years studying market trends in your spare time, you can make strategic decisions under pressure. When you spend countless hours practicing your craft when nobody's watching, you can perform at your best when everyone is. Shadow work also builds character in ways that public work cannot. When you do the right thing without recognition, you develop integrity. When you persist through challenges without encouragement, you develop resilience. When you maintain high standards without supervision, you develop discipline. These character traits become your competitive advantage because they're impossible to fake and difficult to develop under public scrutiny. The most successful people I've studied all share this pattern. They spent years building their foundation before most people knew they existed. They used their anonymous time to become the person they needed to be for their later success. They understood that the work you do in the shadows determines the results you achieve in the spotlight. Your hidden hours are your most valuable hours. They're when you can focus completely on improvement without worrying about others' opinions. They're when you can take risks and make mistakes without damaging your reputation. They're when you can build the foundation that will support everything you want to achieve. The question isn't whether you have time for foundation building. The question is whether you're using your invisible hours to become the person your goals require you to be. The best chess players don't reveal their strategy until checkmate. They move their pieces quietly, positioning them for maximum impact while their opponent focuses on obvious threats. This same principle applies to your career and personal development. The most powerful moves happen when your competition isn't paying attention. Strategic invisibility isn't about hiding your abilities forever. It's about controlling when and how you reveal them for maximum effect. It's about understanding that timing can make the difference between being ignored and being impossible to ignore. Take Lisa, a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized company. While her colleagues competed for credit on every small project, Lisa quietly studied the company's biggest challenges. She noticed their customer retention rates were declining, but nobody seemed to understand why. Instead of pointing this out in meetings, Lisa spent her evenings analyzing customer data and researching retention strategies. For 3 months, Lisa worked on a comprehensive solution while maintaining her regular duties. Her manager thought she was just doing her job competently. Her colleagues assumed she wasn't ambitious because she didn't volunteer for high preface assignments. They were positioning themselves for promotions while Lisa was positioning herself for transformation. When the CEO finally addressed the retention crisis in a company-wide meeting, Lisa was ready. She didn't speak up immediately. She waited for the right moment, when leadership was asking for solutions and everyone else was offering excuses. Then she presented a complete strategy backed by data, competitor analysis, and implementation timeline in one presentation. She went from invisible coordinator to indispensable strategist. This is the power of strategic timing. Lisa could have presented her findings earlier, but the impact would have been minimal. By waiting for the moment when the problem became urgent, her solution became invaluable. She used her colleagues' assumption that she wasn't a strategic thinker to her advantage. While they were busy managing their image, she was building real value. Market positioning works the same way. When everyone assumes you're not a serious competitor, they don't try to block your progress. They don't copy your strategies. They don't poach your customers or employees. You can test approaches, build relationships, and develop capabilities without interference. Smart entrepreneurs use this invisibility period to perfect their business models. While established companies are fighting each other for market share, the invisible competitor is solving customer problems in new ways. By the time the big players notice, the newcomer has already captured significant territory. The key is knowing when visibility becomes more valuable than invisibility. There comes a moment when staying quiet actually limits your progress. This is when you shift from building in private to demonstrating in public. The transition requires perfect timing, because reveal too early and you lose your advantage. Reveal too late and you miss your opportunity. Professional poker players understand this balance perfectly. They play most hands quietly, folding or calling without drawing attention. But when they get the right cards at the right moment, they make moves that shock the table. Their previous invisibility makes their decisive action even more powerful because nobody sees it coming. Your reputation should be like an iceberg. The small part visible above water represents what others currently know about your capabilities. The massive part hidden below water represents your actual potential. When the right moment arrives, you reveal more of what was always there. Building alliances during your invisible phase gives you advantages that become clear later. People you help when you're unknown remember you when you're successful. Relationships you develop without agenda become genuine partnerships. Skills you build without pressure become reliable strengths. The goal isn't to stay invisible forever. The goal is to use invisibility as a strategic advantage while you develop the capabilities that will make your eventual visibility unstoppable when you finally step into the light. You want to do it with such competence and confidence that nobody can question whether you belong there. Strategic invisibility followed by perfectly timed revelation creates the most dramatic and lasting success stories. The moment of transformation never announces itself. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or warning. One day you're the person others overlook, and the next day you're the person they can't ignore. This transition from silent builder to recognized leader happens faster than anyone expects, including you. This is exactly what happened to David Chen, a quality control inspector at an automotive parts manufacturer. For 4 years, David walked the factory floor checking components, while engineers and managers made the important decisions. His colleagues saw him as competent but unremarkable. His supervisor valued his reliability but never considered him management material. David was invisible in the way that steady performers often are. But David was building something during those 4 years that nobody could see while checking parts for defects. He was learning every aspect of the manufacturing process. While others focused on their specific departments, David understood how each piece connected to the whole system. During his lunch breaks, he studied lean manufacturing principles. After work, he read about quality improvement methodologies. On weekends, he analyzed production data, looking for patterns that others missed. David never talked about his studies. He never suggested process improvements in meetings. He never complained about inefficiencies he observed. He just accumulated knowledge and waited for the right moment. That moment came when the company faced a crisis that threatened their biggest contract. A major client was threatening to cancel orders because of recurring quality issues. Multiple departments blamed each other. Consultants were brought in at enormous expense. Emergency meetings were held daily. Managers scrambled to identify solutions while pointing fingers at everyone else's failures. The company was weeks away from losing millions in revenue during one particularly heated meeting. When everyone had exhausted their excuses and explanations, David finally spoke. He didn't raise his voice or demand attention. He simply said, I think I know what's causing the problem, and I have a solution. The room went quiet. This was the quality inspector who barely spoke in meetings. What could he possibly know that the engineers and managers didn't? But desperation had made everyone willing to listen. David walked to the whiteboard and began mapping the entire production process, identifying 3 subtle connection points where small errors were compounding into major defects. His analysis was comprehensive and his solution was practical. He had identified problems that had existed for months but were invisible to people who only saw their piece of the puzzle. Within 6 weeks of implementing David's recommendations, quality scores improved by 40%. The client renewed their contract. The company saved millions. David's transformation was immediate and permanent. The person who had been invisible for 4 years became the most valuable problem solver in the company. Within 3 months, he was promoted to quality manager. Within a year, he was director of operations. His deep understanding of the entire system, built quietly over years, made him irreplaceable. But David's story illustrates something crucial about the transition from invisible to indispensable. Success didn't change who he was. He remained the same careful observer, the same systematic thinker, the same person who understood that real solutions come from deep knowledge rather than quick opinions. The difference was that now everyone could see what had always been there. That had always been there, always there. So this is the pattern of every person who successfully builds in silence. When they emerge, they don't become different people. They reveal who they actually were all along. Their years of quiet development weren't preparation for success. They were success happening invisibly. The transformation moment teaches you something important about human nature. The same people who overlooked you yesterday will praise your brilliance tomorrow. The colleagues who never asked your opinion will suddenly value your input above everyone else's. The managers who never considered you leadership material will wonder how they missed your potential. This isn't hypocrisy, it's simply how recognition works. People can only see what's visible to them. Your private development was invisible until you chose to make it visible. The mistake most people make is feeling bitter about being overlooked. The wise response is understanding that being overlooked was actually an advantage. Your years of being underestimated gave you time to develop capabilities without pressure. They allowed you to make mistakes without consequences. They provided space to experiment and learn without having to defend your methods. Most importantly, they taught you that your worth isn't determined by others' recognition of it. This lesson becomes crucial as you transition to visible leadership. The same humility that helped you build in silence helps you lead with credibility. You don't need to prove your competence because your results speak louder than words. You don't need to fight for respect because your value is obvious. You don't need to defend your position because your foundation is solid. Leading after building in silence gives you unique advantages. You understand what it's like to be overlooked, so you notice potential in others that more obvious leaders miss. You know the value of quiet work, so you create environments where people can develop without constant scrutiny. You've learned that the most important work happens away from audiences, so you focus on substance rather than performance. Your story becomes inspiration for others who are currently building in their own shadows. They see that transformation is possible. They understand that current invisibility doesn't predict future irrelevance. They learn that the quiet path can lead to the most dramatic destinations. The legacy of the silent builder isn't just personal success. It's proving that there's more than one way to achieve significance. While others are fighting for attention in crowded spaces, you demonstrate the power of creating your own path. While others are competing for recognition, you show that the most lasting recognition comes from undeniable competence. Your transformation story becomes a case study in patience, preparation, and perfect timing. It proves that you don't need to be the loudest voice to have the most impact. It demonstrates that invisible work can create visible results, most importantly. It shows that the people who build in silence often build things that last. The journey from underestimated to unstoppable isn't just about personal achievement. It's about changing how success happens. It's about proving that depth matters more than visibility, that substance outweighs style, and that the quiet ones often have the most to say when they finally choose to speak. Your time of building in silence is ending. Your moment of unstoppable impact is beginning. Everything you've developed privately is about to serve you publicly. The people who underestimated you are about to understand what they missed. The competence you built invisibly is about to become impossible to ignore. Step into your moment. Your silence has made you strong. Your invisibility has made you prepared. Your patience has made you unstoppable. The world is ready to see what you've been building all along. The underestimated become the unforgettable. Your time is now.